So we've explored why the critique outweighs theory, and we're going to explore the opposite perspective, i.e. why theory outweighs the K. To refer to the arguments for why K outweighs theory, go to the second video in the lecture series and drill series titled K outweighs theory. So this speech is directly responsive to that. I'm ready whenever you are, Kirk.
Okay. You good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The role of the judge to be adjudicated determines the winner or the loser of the debate round. This is because judges are being paid to judge a tournament. That's our obligation. Judges don't have any other obligation to determine other than to determine the winner and loser of the debate round on your specific arguments. First is the role of the coach to prevent exclusion. It's not the role of the judge, because the role of the judge is here to actually adjudicate the winner or loser of the debate round. Second is an empirical claim without an empirical warrant. Whether we'll remember in 20 years' turn, I say that we'll remember the wins and losses of the debate round. If you make me lose in the debate round, I'll remember 20 years from now. That weighs on this means our way on verifiability. We should focus on what's happening in this round because it's more verifiable. You shouldn't put me down on something on abusive arguments on abusive position. It's not verifiable. The strength of link determines strength of impact. I'm making multiple arguments why theory outweighs the K, but he's only making one argument why K turns my fairness argument. And that's a fairness for who arguments. A fairness for who arguments, which is that if I answer back that argument, I'm the only one accessing strength. I'm the only one accessing offense to what my role of the judge is. So let's go there. Let's go there now. You say it's fairness for who. However, first you can classify the verifiability argument. Second, simply because I lose this round on K doesn't mean I'm going to change my discourse. There's no way of proving that, which means that it's not harming the future, other people. And three, the discourse we use in this debate round don't harm other people because other people don't listen to the discourse that we have in this specific round. I'll concede your norming arguments also means that people don't pay attention to this specific round. My discourse has no effect on the other people. You can accept our number two argument that late church arguments because you're preventing me from being able to engage in arguments. I can't engage on arguments if you're unfair. Even if you win, I can't engage on your arguments. I'm not going to be able to engage as well as you on the arguments that you're going to be presenting, which means that you're always going to be a higher layer. I'm not that's excluding me. That also answers back your number one argument. Now, number two argument, you say I weigh a magnitude. However, one also imagine the magnitude of argument. You make me lose the debate round, which is a huge impact. And second, it's empirically denied. Classify the empirical denial. People aren't going to change their discourse. And three, you can classify the verifiability argument. Extend the Galloway argument. That fairness is a prerequisite. You're excluding me from running arguments that I want. Your first argument is not literally excluding. However, no, it's a question about being able to actually engage in your arguments. Your next arguments I'd be using theory to win rounds. However, this argument doesn't make any sense. People don't run theory. That's all being excluded. You preventing me from running theory by saying K outweighs theory excludes me. So while the purpose of running theory is not being able to exclude you are excluding me, which is that you're linking back to your K impacts you talk about are so important. That's 249.
Okay, I think that this speech was is way too redundant. That there were too many cross applications, and saying like too much. There's over reliance on too few number of arguments. So I think the first thing is there needs to be a better framing issue here for why the role of the judge is to be an adjudicator, right? So I would make a subjectivity argument that different people have different emotions and emotional reactions to things. So we shouldn't let a judge's subjective emotions dictate how they view oppression, right? Like some judges might find the fight against homophobia to be much more personally relevant to their lives than the fight against sexism, right? And if we're having a debate where it's homophobia K versus a sexism K, which I'm not sure this is ever a realistic scenario, but this is just a hypothetical, right? In that situation, it seems like the judge would be forced to choose between two pre-fiat situations that are not necessarily easily objectively resolvable. Now, the opposite perspective here, the way people would respond is to say that they don't get rid of the line-by-line debate. Like the objective line-by-line still solves, right?
Yeah, but you're arguing that they're inserting themselves on evaluating how they evaluate the line-by-line,
Right. And so your point should be that they should observe, like, I guess the argument is that the adjudicator is to determine the best debater, not the debater who makes the round a safer space. So you're trying to you're trying to change the status of the adjudication from who makes debate more inclusive and safe to who won this debate round.
Well, they can say, well, they don't have another speech, but if it's better debater, they can say the better debater is the debater that won on the critical issues.
Well, I mean, I guess that begs the question. This is why we have the framing debate, right? Like, they could say that, but then it begs the question of what constitutes the better debater. And your point is the better debater is the one who is better at, like, either proving the resolution true or false, or proving that their opponent was unfair. But I guess it does once again, but then that bites into the fairness for who arguments and why oppression is not relevant to fairness. Bottom line is, I think that critique debaters have a point here, that their role of the ballot is a legitimate role of the ballot, and it should probably be included in the debate space. So we do have to devise reasons why being an objective adjudicator is something that requires you to not evaluate pre-fiat oppression-based impacts. So maybe let's brainstorm and see what you come up with.
Wait, what was the argument that objective?
Being an objective adjudicator, this is basically the framework versus K-debate, right? Like, you're saying that the framework for the round should be like either policy education or just like we should discuss the post-fiat issues at hand.
Yeah, being an objective adjudicator requires a conception of fairness
Or just like we have to debate the resolution in a post-fiat manner.
Why do we have to do that?
There would be a ton of benefit, like switch side debate is one benefit, topic education is another benefit, role playing is another benefit. I think you should, for homework tonight, watch the Emporia versus Northwestern NDT finals.
I watched that like 2 or 3 times.
You did? Yeah. Do you remember all the arguments?
No.
We should flow it and learn from it, because I think that they engage this debate quite well. Okay? But bottom line is, I think that there needs to, like, there at least needs to be an explanation for why you being paid to do that means that that's your job. Like, why that is more important than you, like, being a human.
Sure.
Does that make sense? You also have to explain why determining the winner of the loser of the debate means theory comes first. So I think that the best way to approach this conversation is not to say that debate rounds shouldn't be a safe space, but rather to say that it's not the judge's role to enforce that safe space. This is why we have adults in the activity that are coaches and administrators. That the debate round that the round itself being safe is not as important as the community being safe. That the exclusion doesn't happen in round, the exclusion happens in the community. At tournaments, between rounds, due to lack of access to resources, etc. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So what that does is that puts significant mitigation on the link towards we need to exclude people, we need to prevent exclusion in debate rounds. Right? Because you're saying, I agree, we should aim to make debate a more accessible space and prevent exclusion. But my point is that there's a ton of alternate solvency for the way we can go about that.
Right.
Right? And the only unique link you're garnering right now is this round. And so then it's just a question of this round being used to make debate a safe space versus this round being used to make the debate round fair.
Yeah, makes sense.
And your strength of link on debate being a safe space, even if I lose that this round is not a safe space, I can capture back a lot of the solvency by the arguments about this is the responsibility of coaches, of administrators, of us as students.
Sure. Yeah.
Make sense? Mm-hmm. I think the other argument that should be here is that judges already have implicit checks to make debate a safe space. i.e., all judges have in their paradigms that if you do something explicitly sexist or racist or homophobic, that they will drop you. Right? And so that is the implicit check on them being humans. And that absent that line being crossed, they will evaluate the line by line. I think also then you can make a unique argument for why debate rounds should be a forum to explore these oppressive issues in a non-critical manner. That this is the time where you're allowed to make mistakes, because this is a setting in which it's not the real world, it's fictional discourse. So the value of this is that of the debate space is that it allows you to evaluate these perspectives and look at them from a non-emotional, non-defensive mindset. Does that make sense? So like, let's say you okay, I'm not explaining that argument very well. It's an argument Reagan cut. It basically is a benefit to switch side debate, which is that in debate, it's like a fictional playground, or it's a discursive playground for students where they can learn how to construct statements of meaning and what the effect of those statements are and how it interacts with other statements, right? And so basically, discursively, you learn how to engage in intellectual conversation. Sure. And so this is the training ground for that. People shouldn't be punished for mistakes they're making in that process, right? That this is the time for them to make mistakes.
Okay. Yeah, and by mistakes, you mean like bad discourse,
right? And now, obviously, there's a line here, right? Like a mistake such as reading some analytical philosophy and not realizing that that philosophy is racist is different from explicitly shouting out the N-word.
Yeah, right.
Where that line lies is tough to point out.
Sure.
So you probably will be behind on the issue of there is no bright line here, but you can make arguments for why there is no need for an explicit bright line.
Right.
Make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. The next, I think, category of arguments you need to focus on making and applying to this speech is that the fairness for who debate can be resolved by talking about fairness for both of us in round. So drawing a difference between out-of-round fairness and in-round fairness. And pointing out that even if out-of-round factors make the activity unfair, we can still have fairness in round.
Sure.
And that, in fact, it probably makes it more important to have fairness in round, because this is the one place we can actually control for that.
Okay.
Makes sense?
Uh-huh.
I think also then you need some stronger lip service on the substantive versus structural skew.
Sure.
Your point should be that if you can lose the debate for a substantive issue that you brought up, substantive fairness skews are then relevant.
Okay.
Like, if the substance of the debate will cost you the round, then if the substance of the debate is being executed unfairly, then it may potentially be unnecessarily costing you the round.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I think the next category of arguments you need to make is that the idea that real-world change can happen via the K and the pre-fiat issue is perhaps too idealistic. So there's two ways this functions, right? One is like pre-fiat issues about like solving some oppression that is not specific to the community. And the second is solving oppression specific to the community. So, like, if it's a question of this certain debater feels excluded from the community, these forms of the arguments that we're about to make no sense. But if it's a question of like your generic cap case that says like capitalist logic needs to be challenged and addressed, right? Then these following arguments make a lot of sense. The first should be that this is not the right forum to make these to address these issues. That A, debate is inaccessible due to its format. People don't understand the spread. And B, debate is adversarial due to the fact that it's switched sides, which means that one side necessarily has to oppose what you say, which puts them at an awful position, which is both a unique harm and probably a reason that debate won't ever solve. And C, debate is a competitive activity, which means that people don't have an incentive to stay consistent to their pre-fiat advocacies, that they're using it as a method to get the ballot. This additionally can function as a ruse of solvency.
Okay.
Now, again, none of these arguments are persuasive, and quite frankly, they're probably insulting to people who are talking about being excluded from the activity.
Yeah.
Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I think that incorporating all of those is a good start. That was a lot of arguments we just came up with.
Sure.
Right? So let's give you a night to work on this, and let's see what it looks like tomorrow when you incorporate all of these arguments.
Sure.
And now, the key thing to understand here is that these are highly emotional issues often, right? And so you want to keep in mind that though you're trying to win, you also don't want to hurt your opponent.
Right.
Like, this is ultimately just a debate round, right? And so it is important that you remain sensitive to what they're saying and you don't callously just dismiss it.
Sure.
There's also a difference between like engaging in the line by line in a classy and professional manner and engaging in the line by line sort of like a jerk.
Right.
Right? And so it's important to not be insensitive and to be mean. But that doesn't mean you can't be firm and you can't make arguments.
Okay.
Do you have any questions?
No, I'm good.